welcome to the channel. If you're new around here, my name is Mel and I live on the Orkney Islands off the north coast of Scotland, and normally I am a knitting podcaster, but today's episode is something a little bit different. So it is November 1st, which apart from being the day they thought out Mariah Carey, is also day one of a new project, and a project I'm calling, I don't know, Project Christmas Sweater or the Christmas Project, I'm not sure. Anyway, my plan is to knit a Christmas sweater preferably before the beginning of December. That's what the hope is, or certainly by Christmas, but hopefully by the beginning of December, and if possible maybe even a second one, but we'll see. But because it's going to be the same design, it might not be too unachievable. So first of all, I gathered all my yarns together, which I will talk about in a moment, but I just want to show you the design that I'm going to be using. This design stood out to me quite a while ago, and at first I wasn't sure I would make one because I thought it was unachievable for me, or at the time it seemed unachievable. But now I've done quite a lot of colour work, because this is a colour work sweater. I think it is totally possible. So the design is the Boreal sweater by Kate Davies, and it is a fantastic, almost all over colourwork yoke, well, colourwork sweater. It comes down to, can't see very well, but it comes down to at least like the waistline basically, and yeah, so it is covered in like snowflakes and kind of frosty designs. So I had a problem with the yarns. Let's start with it. So I have some yarn left over from a previous project. I have a fair amount left of Drops Alaska in the colourway 11, which is this bright crimson red. It's, on my viewfinder it looks a little bit zingy red, but it's quite a rich Christmassy red. And originally I had planned to hold this, or to knit this design with this and a kind of a light grey, but I decided that I didn't think it would be Christmassy enough. So then my next plan was white yarn. Now I don't really have much in the way of white yarn. I have undyed yarn, but undyed yarn tends to be on the creamier side, and it just didn't look right. The yarn that I did have, it was too creamy to go with this. I mean, it would work, but it still wasn't looking festive enough. And if you've been following the podcast, you know that I'm on a yarn diet. So I was reluctant to buy more yarn. I had a very small amount, less than one ball left over, of Drops Nepal in white. I've got a bit of shadow in here this afternoon, and I really like the white. I was a bit worried it was going to be really stark though, so I had another rethink, and I went through my stash and I found some yarn that's white but not stark white, and it is Serdar Tweedy Chunky. And as you can see, it's not as stark a white. If I get the Nepal white, you can see it's not, that looks really white. That doesn't look white there at all until you take that away. But that, I can assure you, is lighter than an undyed yarn. So I thought, great. In fact, if anything, this yarn kind of has almost a yellowy greeny tint in certain lights. Which I'm not, you know, it's not a terrible thing. So that's the plan, because Drops Alaska is an Aran weight. The pattern is for an Aran weight, and Drops Alaska is an Aran weight, but it is quite heavy Aran weight. I would argue it's almost bordering on a chunky. It's not quite there, but it's somewhere between the two. And the sweater that I have on, I knit in the same base. The burgundy is Drops Alaska, the green is Drops Alaska, and I think the top is Drops Nepal. And when I knit this, which is the Skoggenfjall sweater by Diana Waller, I changed the gauge for it to suit the texture of the yarn, the fabric, to a 14 stitch gauge, so that it worked nicer with the yarn, which is what I plan to do with this. Now the Tweedy Chunky is supposed to be a chunky yarn, but when you look at it, it actually looks thinner than the Drops Alaska. You can see they are very, very similar thicknesses, especially when they're stretched out. Both balls are kind of dangling now. So I'm thinking they'll work quite well together. My only problem is I don't know 100% sure whether I have enough yardage. I only have 200 grams of the Tweedy, and the Skoggenfjall, the yardage I used for the green and the grey added up to just knit this colourwork yoke is around 220 yards to do the yoke to here. And the Tweedy, which has more yardage than the Alaska, I have 440 thereabouts yards over 4 balls, and I can't get any more of this. This is discontinued. I've had this for years in my stash, so in theory this should be just enough, but I couldn't swear to it. So I have a couple of options. The colour work, Kate Davies has got her arms up in the air, but the colour work goes down the sleeves. The same mirror kind of image on the body is done on the sleeves. At a push, I could stop the mirror image halfway down on the sleeves if I think I'm going to run out of yarn. That's option one. I could also, in theory, blend up some fibre to kind of look almost identical to this in colour. Probably stopping the colour is probably better. So we shall see. And the only other thing is this yarn is 100% wool. This yarn is not. I'm trying to find a ball band. This yarn is 45% acrylic, 40% wool, 15% rather of alpaca. And I don't normally knit with acrylic, and I certainly don't normally have an acrylic in a sweater, because I find acrylic can be quite, it can make you sweat and make you quite warm. So I'm also of two minds as to whether to steek this and make it into a cardigan. I need to figure out how I'm going to wear it, if I'll be wearing it with like dresses, like open over a dress or something, or if I want to wear it as a sweater over like jeans or sweatpants and stuff. So I need to decide upon that. So the other things I'm going to do is I'm going to change the construction method. So the pattern is a bottom-up construction, and people's comments on the Ravelry pages, project pages, say the sleeves are quite narrow, so I'm going to have to watch for that and watch my stitch count that I adjust for that, which I will be. I'll be adding extra underarm stitches, but I will be knitting this top down. And when I knit this sweater, the Skoggenfjall, this is also bottom up, and I converted it to knitting top down. I basically followed the instructions in reverse. So I'm going to use my original notes that I have on my Skoggenfjall sweater pattern. So I'm going to work out things like the stitch numbers for this, for certain parts, and work out where that fits onto this one, and use, so the size for this will be the same sort of stitch count as this one basically. I could steek it, like I said. I did steek another cardigan, which I plugged the colourwork chart for into my Skoggenfjall recipe as well. This is the Åland cardigan, and this comes in limited sizes, but I used the colourwork chart from it, and I used the stitch counts that I'd used for the Skoggenfjall and put the colour chart, or managed to like fit the colour chart in. And I also steeked this one. This has a steek on it, so I could also make a Christmas cardigan. Now when I was looking through the project pages for the Boreal, I came across a beautiful version somebody had half done and then frogged, but I loved the way they used their colours, and it inspired me to make a second one. Instead of a red and white Christmas one, I would like to make a navy blue and white, wintry, snowy version. And where a lot of people had done the light colour at the top and the dark colour at the bottom on the sweater, which I will do with the red one, this person had done the blue at the top like the night sky, and then it had snowflakes in amongst it, and then it had the white for the lower half with the blue mirror image in the bottom, and it looks beautiful. The half done version looks beautiful. So I actually broke my yarn diet to buy more of the drops Nepal, because I only had, like, this is less than 1 ball, so I now have 6 and a bit balls of the Nepal, which should be plenty, because I already had the sweater quantity of the navy blue I'd originally bought for another project about 5 years ago, and decided against using it for that project. So it's just sitting there waiting for something else to come along. I thought maybe I would end up knitting my husband a sweater, but instead I'm going to knit something else for myself and knit a second wintry one. Whether I'll get it done before Christmas is debatable, but I hope to get it done early winter, and this one will definitely be a sweater, so you can really see the whole effect of the snowflakes and the night sky and such like, which is another reason why I'm considering steeking the red and white one. So I'm going to take you along on the process. This video will probably be a 2-parter. Well, it'll be more than 1 anyway, probably 2. So I'm sure the next bit of this video will be me casting on and starting the project, and I will take you along where I've made changes and how I've adapted the pattern, and if things go wrong, because I often have to throw back pieces. And I'm going to do something which I don't do and I should do, which is I'm going to do provisional cast on for the neckline, because 80% of the time when I knit any garment I end up ripping out the collar and redoing it because I'm never happy with it, and it's a real pain to rip out a top down collar. So I'm going to provisional cast on, and I will be using Andrea Mowry's tutorial on her YouTube channel for that, because I've used it before and it worked really well for crochet provisional cast on. I had a look around, and the only project bag I could find that was Christmassy and big enough is this one I made a few years ago, which I love, but it is very big, and I don't know if it's just going to be too big. Maybe it won't, because I am making quite a large sweater, but it takes up a lot of space on the sofa, and I just lined it in red, and it has plain grey on the bottom, but I really love the Scandinavian style fabric. Don't ask me to make a project bag, because my sewing skills are rudimentary. So it does the job, and it originally had a lot of interface again, which I ripped out because it was too stiff, which is why it's a bit crinkly and wrinkly, but it will do, and it will fold down and squish down as necessary. So I'm going to get all my bits and pieces ready in there. I will get my patterns and put them on my clipboard where I keep my current patterns that I'm using, although it's pretty full because I have a lot on the needles right now, and hopefully I can cast on very soon. So I have cast on a provisional cast on, and I have knit 2 rows. No, I have done 1 row of the actual knitting into the crochet cast on, and 1 row of just knitting around. So now I'm going to work on the short rows. So what I've done is, with like a round yoke, well, with all yokes, but with the round yoke garment, you have like your collar, and then you got like increases, or if you're working upwards you'd have your decreases. And so what I've done is I've provisional cast on below the final, what would be decreases before the collar if you're working bottom up, which I will do when I come to do the collar. I'll pick those up and I'll do the final decreases for the size of collar that I want before I knit the collar. So I've provisionally cast on more stitches than you would have at the collar, if that makes sense. I'm a little bit flustered because we're having trouble with our phone line today, and I got a text back from BT, and yeah, they will get an engineer out to repair it by midnight a week from now. So I don't know when this is going to get uploaded. I might need to dip into town to use the library's internet. So I'm a bit flustered this morning. So what I'm going to do now is the short row shaping for the back of the neck. I do like to put a raised short row shaping at the back here. And I was just going to explain how I decide where to put the short rows in for a garment. This is probably easier to explain on a sweater. I have decided to make this a steeked cardigan, so I have added an extra 5 stitches in to the steek, for the steek rather. But I'm going to put the camera down, point it down here, and show you kind of what I will be doing. So this is Mel in the future saying I recorded a whole section that went in here about how to do short row shaping for the back of the neck. And I won't be adding it in because I managed to do my short rows upside down and my instructions were upside down. I don't know what I was thinking, so I will record a video at some point down the line about how I do my short row shaping for the back of a neck of a garment, probably when I do the sweater version of this. But yeah, upside down short rows, but there'll be more about that when we get to this part. Okay, so I think it is the 6th of November and I have knit the first part of the colour work. Well, I have knit the first part of the colour work, okay? But I will be frogging all of this back out and starting again. I've made one minor mistake, one major mistake with this. So the colour work is finally starting to look like something. When I'd done the first few rows I thought, oh, I'm not so sure, but now it's kind of looking okay, and once there's big frosty snowflakes, it'll look quite nice. But the minor mistake, so I did my short row shaping, I did my provisional cast on, did my short row shaping, and didn't realise until I was looking at my short row shaping and I thought, my gauge is really sloppy up here compared to, well, not just where the colour work is, but like if you look just above the colour work, the gauge there, and then you look above it and it's really loose, and which is unusual because when you're doing short rows you're knitting back and forth, and normally my gauge is tighter when I knit back and forth than when I knit in the round, but this is bad. And I thought, okay, I might have to pick up the stitches, rip these out the wrong way, which I hate doing, top down when I've already knit it top down, and redo the short rows bottom up, because the gauge is so bad. And then it dawned on me I'd knit my short rows the wrong way round. So when you're doing short rows at the back of the neck, what you're trying to do is make like an arc like that. So therefore at the top of the neck area, I'm exaggerating this, but it is shorter short rows, and then they get longer and longer as you come down. But I'd done the opposite, I'd done the longer and then the shorter and shorter. In reality, when the garment's knitted up, it would look fine. It would kind of have the same, it would have the same effect, but it just doesn't look as neat. So I'd done them upside down, but my gauge is terrible. So again, I was just thinking of picking up, ripping out. Another thing is, I am not sure I'm going to have enough white yarn. I have this much left of the first ball and I have 4 balls and I have only knit this much. But I thought, oh, I can get around that. I'll just knit the first, like the top half of the colour work before it kind of mirror images. If you look at the chart, you have on this one like white and green in it, and then it flips and goes to green with white in it, and it does the same on the sleeves, although you can't see from these pictures because there are elbows waving in the air. But I was thinking, oh, I can just knit the first half down and then just kind of finish off the final little snowflakes that are half done in the chart, and I should have just enough yarn. I did kind of work it out earlier on, and then I realised the big major mistake I had made. So if I show the chart, no, I won't show the chart, it's a paid for pattern, and I'll show the garment. So I've done a steek here, and as I've knit it, I've started the first colour repeat or chart repeat and knitted there, and then I've knit the chart repeat around, and then I finish the final chart repeat before the steek, which I shouldn't have done, because there are 3 repeats on the front of the sweater, 3 repeats on the back, and 1 repeat on each shoulder down the sleeve. But I've put 2 there, so then I would either have to have 4 on the front, 2 on the sleeves, and 2 on the back, which would make the sleeves back here. Or I'd have to shift the chart on the sleeves, which would make the snowflakes in a weird position. And I cannot think of a better way of fudging it, because there are also increases in the sleeve chart in a few repeats, a few rounds from where I am now. You then start increasing, you put stitch markers in, you increase for the sleeve cap, or not the sleeve cap, but you know, further down the arm. And I could kind of fudge it, I could work it, but it would, I could maybe move the increases to all on the back, but then you'd have a bigger area of like blank space on the back than the front. And I can't think of a way that wouldn't bother me forever. So instead, I'm going to rip all this out and I'm going to start again. And what I'm going to do is my provisional cast on, instead of doing it above the short row shaping, I'm going to bring it down to just above the chart, and I will do it just before I think there's some 1 row of increases before you start the chart. So I will do my provisional cast on there, so there isn't all this sloppy tension here. And then when I pick up the stitches, I will knit upwards, and I'm hoping there'll be enough weight in the garment then to make my tension more even, because my tension's tight enough on the colourwork section. It's just all this, and I don't know whether it's because of the provisional cast on, the chain being quite loose, it's just kind of loosened up all my stitches. So because if I'd only do 1 row before the chart or 2 rows before the chart, it won't be so noticeable. So that is my plan. It also means that if I really get short on yarn, I can sneak in short row shaping on the collar section. I can do the collar in the red rather than in the white, and I won't have to have as much of this white yarn used up at the top. I could do maybe 1 row of decreases in the white, start the red, do kind of a row of stockinette, and then sneak in some short rows before I do the collar. I'll come back to, when I get back to this point, basically, we'll see, and I'll report back. And then I think that'll probably be towards the end of this first vlog. Hopefully, second time's a charm. Okay, so I ripped back and I've restarted the chart, and I have got past where I was before. I have done the top snowflakes and we're on to the second area of snowflakes and the beginning of the big, like kind of frost pattern in it. So it's coming on quite well, and I'm just coming up to a part where, well, okay, so I started recently, when I've done round yoke sweaters, is knitting a smaller size for the yoke and then increasing before you get to the bust if I need to, because I'm finding with round yoke sweaters often they end up really bulky around the shoulders. I did a name eludes me, mandarins, oh, what's it, Melody Hoffman pattern, and in that she does a similar thing. In fact, it was when I was starting that pattern, the Posy sweater, something like that, that I was going to do that. I was going to knit a smaller size and then increase, because I've been having so many problems with round yoke sweaters, and when I came to look at the pattern, it was already done like that, so that was really convenient. So in this one, it has a similar thing in it where there are increases, or there would be decreases because it's bottom up, but increases, you kind of knit part of the yoke, and then there are increases or decreases where just before you get to the arms or just after you get to the arms. So it's bigger for the bust and it's not so broad on the shoulders. So I'm about to do that, and I think I will come back to you when I've got a little further, because I'm sure there'll be more changes that I will make. So I'm going to leave vlog 1 here, and we will come back when I get a little further on my Christmas sweater. Okay, bye bye for now.